5 talents, 2 talents, 1 talent. It doesn't sound like very much. They've been given a couple bucks. You know how much a talent was worth? One single talent was worth approximately 6,000 days worth of wages, which is just shy of 20 years. So just shy of 20 years worth of wages was a single talent. So the fellow who received 5 talents received a lifetime's worth of wages. That's an incredible amount of money. Depending on how you do the math, that's somewhere between $5 and $10 million that was laid into his hands. Changes the outlook on this story entirely. When these servants, who are not his accountants and who are not his brokers, these are the ones who are probably making dinner, cleaning the premises, maybe mending his clothes, whatever it is, these guys are receiving incredible amounts of money. And we see different reactions in each of them. I mean, can you imagine someone coming to you and saying, let me give you $7 million to take care of while I'm away? I don't know what I would do. I mean, the shock that would hit me. I'm not sure where to even begin with that. I think what Jesus is trying to point out in this gospel on the first hand is that he's speaking with such great over-exaggeration, because this probably would never happen in real life. But he's using this tool of exaggeration to demonstrate just how generous God is. That God desires us to possess everything that we need for salvation. He wants to give us everything we need for eternal life. That we would never be in want because everything is so freely given. Even if we don't know what to do with it or if have any experience doing it. That he just wants to pour out completely upon us, lavish, richly bless with everything that we would have no want. And of course, we're not talking about physical money here. Jesus is speaking about the gift of grace. He's speaking about the gifts of grace, the gifts of providence, that in God's plan, things are taken care of. And you will have everything that you need in order to progress through the ups and downs of life. But the question then that strikes us back is, what do we do with the graces that are given to us? What do we do with the gifts that God puts into our hands? Whether those are spiritual gifts or real physical, tangible gifts, what are we doing with those? In today's scriptures, we see 2 reactions, 2 types of fear. The psalmist today speaks of fear. Blessed are those who fear the Lord. That kind of fear is very different from what the person in the gospel experienced receiving the 1 talent. He had a whole different kind of fear, a fear that paralyzed, a fear that caused him to stop and do nothing. Let me just take this talent, 20 years worth of wages. Let me take that and just bury it. Let me just hide it, because that's just so much. I don't know what to do with it. And it paralyzed him. He froze, and he was afraid. That's the kind of fear that God does not desire. In fact, we hear the reaction of the master to that. You wicked servant, letting fear, which is the opposite of love, letting fear rule your life, closing down, hiding, pushing everything away. That type of fear didn't lead him to happiness, not in this life or in the next. That type of fear didn't move him and motivate him to do anything with what he had been given. But he lived then, in that time that the master was away, as if he didn't possess anything. I'm going to bury it, I'm going to hide it, and I'm going to live as if I didn't even have it. That kind of fear does not lead us to salvation. But blessed are those who fear the Lord. Here's a different kind of fear. This is the kind of fear that causes one to stop in one's tracks and to appreciate the magnitude. If someone handed you the briefcase, here is $7 million, you would have all kinds of emotions, all kinds of fear. If I stood out there and one of you came out and I pulled out $7 million and handed it to you, and you're walking to your car with this briefcase, you would probably not know what to do with it, looking over your shoulder, wondering what's going to happen next, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do that. But if anybody wants to do that to me, I am willing to live in that fear. This kind of fear, the fear of the Lord, the fear of appreciation, that these two other men in the gospel appreciated the magnitude of the gift that they had and knew that I can't just waste it by doing nothing. I have to do some good with this. I have to unfold it in some way, that there is an appreciation, a care that immediately surrounds it. When you have your first child and you hold that child in your arms, all of a sudden your world changes and you have a fear of what it means to be a parent. You have a fear of raising this child and making sure that he or she will have everything they need. It's not a fear that paralyzes per se, but it's a fear of appreciation of the gift, knowing that this is a great and awesome gift and I'm responsible for it. That kind of fear is a blessing because that kind of fear causes us to stop for a moment in order to discern, now what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with the gift? What am I going to do with the responsibility? How am I going to magnify it? How am I going to make it grow? These other two men who received the 5 and the 2 talents, this is immediately what they did. They immediately began thinking, what do I do with this so that it is magnified and multiplied? Discernment. To be real honest, when I think about my own life, I'm not sure I always live there. I'm not sure I always live in the other fear either. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of my life that is in the middle. I don't necessarily have the appreciation of God in every moment and everything I do and say of God. I'm not terrified either. I'm not fearing the pains of hell, as sometimes the prayers enunciate. I'm not fearing losing everything, but I live rather in a sort of mehness, that here in the middle, life just goes on. And I have a to-do list to take care of, and I have a schedule to keep, and I have things that need to get done, and I have tasks to plan for, and I have all sorts of things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And to be real honest, I'm not sure that I always see the eternal significance of those. It's just something to get done today. And that's a tragedy, because in some sense, that's a wasting of an opportunity. It's a wasting of the time that I could, even in this tiny daily task, see that it was given to me by God to do something with. I may not have buried the talent like the man in fear, but I certainly didn't invest that small amount of time into eternity. And so I'm not sure what there is to show for it except a check mark on the to-do list. And I don't think that's what the Lord rewards. So it causes me, when I hear this gospel today, to stop and think about, what are the things that I have to do in my life? And what are the responsibilities given to me? And many of them are going to seem mundane and daily and ordinary. Making dinner, going to the grocery store, planning for the Advent season, this, that, or the other thing, the things that are going to be on my to-do list. What's on your to-do list? Do you see the eternal significance in them? Do you see how that is part of your vocation? That is your call to holiness? That leads you to eternity? That it can be multiplied and magnified if it is approached with the expectation that this is big. This is big. You and I will be given a different talent. Some of us are going to have a lifetime, a full lifetime. Some of us are only going to get half a lifetime, and some even less than that. But we're all going to be given something of great value. What do we do with the time and the talent and the resources that have been given to us? Am I using everything for the glory of God and as if it had eternal significance? We don't want to live in fear and terror. We want to live in the fear of the Lord because that's where blessing is. And above all, we don't want to be in the middle where everything just becomes ordinary. So take a step back. Stop. Look at what the Lord has put into your hands and fear it with a great admiration. Look at what the Lord has put into my hands, a lifetime of wealth.